Hey family, how you doing? This is your brother by Radi. Peace to you, peace to your home, peace to your family, peace to your community, peace to your ancestry, peace to my community, peace to my ancestry, and peace to the nation that you are and they are building. Peace also to the godly forces, great spirit above, mother below. This is Mtima Radi, everybody. Mtima Radi, so lightning. So, something's been running through my head a lot recently. And, I really want to bring this up here. I can't remember what video it was that I saw. But Dr. Phil Valentine used to talk about how when he went to Dr. Ben about taking these higher metaphysical concepts and bringing them to the public, particularly the black public, Dr. Ben said they ain't ready for it. And Phil Valentine then created what he called the metaphysical underground, and they started doing their own research and prepping to bring that research out. Now, if this is indeed true, if this is what really happened, I think there's evidence to support that it probably did happen, because in the 90s, you could see that there is a clear, especially the early 90s, you could see that there is a clear separation between people such as Phil Valentine and Bobby Hemmitt and some of them other guys, and people like Francis Cress Welsing and Amos Wilson and them. In fact, Bobby Hemmitt even made a mention of this after Amos Wilson passed away. He said that they had approached Amos Wilson to join their group, saying that, you should be over here with us. And Amos Wilson said no. And obviously Amos Wilson passed away. But in hearing this statement, I didn't understand it, because, this was the first time when I heard Phil Valentine talking about this was back in 2016. I just don't remember the video. He talked about it a few times, by the way, but so 2016, I'm getting this information, I'm feeling it, I'm loving it, and I'm going to town on it. And so I didn't understand it. Why would these elders say that we weren't ready? It's clear, looking ahead now, that we have this information and many of us are using it to the great benefit for ourselves. I get it now. Now, I've stated to you guys many times before that I am a studier of Dr. King. I love Dr. King, in fact, and think that he is often misrepresented by white folks to deceive black people about who he really is. And worse yet, he is misrepresented by a lot of black folks, which stops his true power from shining through. In studying him, though, I have learned a lot about moralistic concepts and advanced moralistic concepts. Now, I know Bobby Hemmitt has talked for many years about how morals are worthless and needless and all this other stuff. And that's mainly drawn from Aleister Crowley's work. But I am here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that no, morals are important, especially when we start talking about the growth for the human souls. Morals, which, don't forget, morals is the English equivalent of a concept which was utilized by the Kemetic priests and such. So, what we interpret morals as comes purely from a European standpoint. If you delve into African customs, which it boggles my mind to see how quickly, again, Bobby Hemmitt, Phil Valentine, they ran away from Afrocentrism. And if they didn't, and they took time to delve into its one calling to go back to Africa, to reunite ourselves with the heretical structures that had fed us for so many dozens of generations, hundreds of generations, in fact, they would have seen that the European model for morals was severely lacking in comparison to African models of morality. And that's because the Europeans were interpreting on a very thin level the concepts of morality for the rest of the world, which were far more extensive and not based on morals, in fact, but based on honor. Based on honor. Now, this is obviously something that you hear a lot about in, Japan and Asia. But in Africa, there's a huge, huge tradition of honor. And it wasn't the breaking of moral codes. The moral codes were slight in comparison to the code for honorability. It was when you started peeling away the honor, the aspect of honor, that's when you started really destroying the civilization, the society, the community, the tribe, the nation. That's what was there. And in fact, when you get to the higher levels of European society, they didn't talk about morals. They talked about honor codes. And I believe this came from the Moors. They talked about honor codes and codes for honor. You dealt with people in an honorific fashion. Now, recently, this European code for honor has actually been in the news. But they don't talk about it in that fashion. When Donald Trump ordered the assassination of Qasem Soleimani, I listened to this really good clip from the Thom Hartmann show. Thom Hartmann, white guy, runs this show that is often termed as progressive. But what I like about Thom Hartmann is he's a smart guy and he doesn't hide his intelligence. I find out a lot of things listening to his show that otherwise I wouldn't find out. He was talking about a unwritten, somewhat unwritten, rule in war that you don't kill the high people. You don't kill the generals. You don't kill the admirals. You don't kill the princes. You don't kill the kings. You don't kill the queens. Basically, you don't kill the command. You kill the roaches. You kill the ants. That's us, by the way. You kill the people at the bottom. You don't break that code. If you break that code, then it becomes basically a real world Game of Thrones scenario where you have no clue who's dropping next. So you don't do that. You kill the proxy forces, but you don't kill the heads. Why? Honor. 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 Now, we as black folks, we talk about needing to love ourselves. It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that. We need to have honor. This is the one thing that really is lacking. We talk about self-esteem, self-worth, self-dignity, self this, self that, because we've bought into the narrative of this society, which is that it's an individualistic concept. You have to be so individualistic that everything comes from inside of you. We're African. We don't do that. We are communal to the core. And in fact, well, I'll get to that in a second. We are communal to the core. We need a structure of interrelationship that restores worth, dignity, confidence, not only for the individual, but for the collective society. And that's what we've been missing. Now, this notion, now, by the way, that comes from honor. That's an honor concept. There's one of my books on Africa that I have on an African tribe over there that actually talks about that. And I can't remember which one it was. But this idea of honor, of this honor code, actually was on full display during the crack epidemic, which I still maintain psycho-spiritual warfare against black people to break our cultural habits. You don't call something crack unless you're expecting something to break. When brothers and sisters would go and purchase shoes, Nikes, Reeboks, Adidas, expensive shoes, from companies which I'm thinking on a super conscious, collective conscious level, everybody in the community understood was exploiting dramatically their workforces, abusing their workforces, destroying communities and societies and countries. People were wearing these things, and they were feeling bold as they wore these things. Their egos were being stroked as they wore these things. Why? Because everything that is created in this country, everything that is created in this world, I'm sorry for that slip up, but in this world has a spiritual essence to it. When you create it, it has a spiritual essence to it. So when you conceive something for a specific purpose, it has layered purposes. And then that purpose is enclosed by the material that people utilize to build it. And their spiritual essence then goes into that thing. And how those people are treated, impacts their spiritual essence, and thus impacts the vibratory frequency of that thing which is being made. So these people were utilizing these I'm going to use shoes here because that's exactly what I'm talking about. They were utilizing these shoes, and it was impacting how they thought. It was impacting how they thought and how they carried themselves. It changed their vibratory frequency. And then somebody would scuff them up. And they would have a horrific reaction. They would have an overblown reaction. Sometimes resulting in a fight, sometimes resulting in a death. Outside of the metaphysical concepts that I was just talking about, this is the honor code on display. When you are not conscious enough to acknowledge your brother or sister and to avoid hitting them, whether you're the one going and coming or you're the one going, that is a broken principle in the honor code. That is a broken principle in the honor code. And that then resulted in a fight and often, sometimes even a death. So I got to go and grab some water. I'll be right back. Water, ladies and gentlemen. So, why is this important? Because morals and honor is two different things. Morality is something that you sculpt to keep creations from man, from humanity, should I say, in line with honor. So corporations need a moral code. Governments need a moral code. Honor is a cultural aspect that governs how people interact. But because when people get together, there's a super consciousness that is created. And especially when they create freestanding things such as institutions, governments, religion, blah, 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 you need a moral code to govern and to maintain those superconscious structures, to maintain their alliance with and their connection to honor. Because it is understood that whatever is created by man goes through cycles of growth, maturity. I'm sorry, I didn't even start at the right one. Birth, growth, maturity, decay, death, and then you start it over again. It's understood that that's going to happen. So you need, during that process, that structure to be tethered completely to honor. Because the honor principle is going to wax and wane. It's going to wax and wane. As that institution goes through, as it goes through the concept of growth to maturity, you're going to go from an intense feeding of honor to a more constricted feeding of honor to see if that institution has taken that essence and spread it out thoroughly throughout its structure. Once that is determined, in the decaying process, you get I'm looking for a word. You get the, I can't think of the word. You get the exclusions, I guess is the best word that I can come up with. That you get the portions of the institution that are not adhering, that aren't going by the honor principle. Those, the honor code, should I say, and the principles within that code, those aspects of the institution that are not adhering to that become bolder. They stand out. So that the principles that are, or should I say, the structures that are adhering to the honor code can thus identify those other portions, and in the dying process can work to start restructuring them. And then in the rebirth process, that work is then enhanced by the honor code again. And thus, now you have a huge influx of the honor code coming, which enables a complete restructuring of those aspects of the institution that aren't working. Now, this cycle is great because it reveals weaknesses constantly, and it gives solutions the energy that is necessary to rebuild and reconstruct. We are actually, in this country, in this world, we're going through that presently. We're going to be going through that for the next 20 or 30 years. Capitalism is going through that. Capitalism is going through that. And I probably will talk about that on another video and sometime in the future. But returning to the original concept, why I started this video. The reason I believe that Dr. Ben said that the society, black people, were not ready for the advanced metaphysics was because collectively we had rejected accepting the honor code. In the 1950s and 60s, when Dr. King and Malcolm X, who I am increasingly seeing as two sides of the same coin, that's a bad metaphor, by the way, but they're drawing from the same strength. Sorry, family. They're drawing from the same source. When they were promoting the concepts that would have together formed honor for us, concepts that were so strong that they were literally pulling the world in the direction that we were going. Because look, we're elders to this planet, ladies and gentlemen. We have to get that in our minds. Whatever we do, we impact the world. Even if we just say this is for black people, we impact the world. You had Malcolm and Martin talking this talk that needed to be talked. And black people started adhering to it. Nonviolence wasn't about decapitating us and making sure that we couldn't fight against people, even though I believe Dr. King took it in a way that just wasn't beneficial. To an extent, not extremely, but to an extent. In Asia, there's a huge nonviolent tradition when it comes to martial arts. You don't learn martial arts to go to war. There's a different code, different warrior code with that. And I think if Dr. King had understood that, it's don't ever forget, ladies and gentlemen, it's step by step by step by step by step. So his contribution was one step in a process. But if Dr. King had understood that there is this different code for warriors, that there is this different code of conduct in martial arts, then he might have viewed nonviolence very, very differently. Nonviolence doesn't mean no violence. Nonviolence means kind of what Malcolm X was saying, that proportional response, but also you don't have to use it. You don't have to use it. Meaning, and man, I struggled with this for a long time because I've studied Dr. King so closely. You don't learn martial arts to fight. Martial arts first is a energy gathering and regulating force. Nonviolence should be the same thing. It should be the same thing. And in fact, if you study what it became first, what it required of its participants, you see that the seeds of regulating energy was in the concept. It was very powerful. That said, what both Dr. King and Malcolm taught black folks was part of the honor code. And it's clear when you look at it from a very long perspective that the Black Power movement was part of the honor code. You can't honor anybody else if you don't honor who you are collectively, heretically, as a people. And if you don't understand what makes you uniquely you, thus what can you offer to the world? This honor code became this track to implementing the honor code became dislodged. A lot of it was due to, white interference and white sabotaging, but it also had a lot to do with black people just making the decision not to follow these concepts. It had unfortunately a lot to do with it. And so when Phil Valentine came forward and said, look, we want to do this. We want to learn this stuff so then we can put it out. Part of, I think, why Dr. Ben said the public isn't ready, and possibly even you're not ready, is because honor, morality, both of those things were really rejected by the black community. And if you do not, first and foremost, have that, you can give them as much other information that you want to give them, and they won't be able to appreciate it. Honor, morality, there's a couple of others. They really form the constructive and restrictive components of the thinking mind. And the thinking mind, which is structured, unites with the flame of the emotions, the flame of the spirit, and elevates beyond intelligence. They go then to intuition. And the word intuition, we always have to remember, I'm using English words here, ladies and gentlemen. Most of us think we know what English words mean. We have no clue what English words mean. Intuit, which is the primary word in intuition, means to teach from the inside out. It is an inner knowing. It's an inner tutor. It's an inner concept of extracting and retrieving and reliving knowledge that is within the being. Or as I like to say, in with the being. And instead of, the reason why I use the phrase in with is because to say inside or to say within the being gives a different connotation than in with the being. And if you meditate on that, I think you'll see what I mean. But we as a black people and as an African-centered people, we need to restructure what we see when we talk about morality. Morality needs to come along with honor. And the funny thing that I'm starting to realize is that the trinity that we are trying to understand in a grasp, really. People say overstand, but it's really, I think, inner grasp right now. The trinity that we're trying to grasp: honor, morality, and law. Now, you and I would say, wait a minute. Laws are similar. The laws have to do with both morality and honor. Laws have to do with those things. No. Laws are constant. Laws are constant. Honor is a concept that is cultural. Honor can be adjusted and amended. It doesn't have to be constant. And then remember what I said about morality. Morality is something that is created to align institutions, organizations that are created by man, humanity, with honor. So law is constant. This is the Trinity that we are trying to understand and grasp, understand. And this is what I think was referenced when Dr. Ben told Phil Valentine that you guys just ain't ready for that. You're not ready for that information. To that end, black people, I've been talking to you for a long time about practical metaphysics. This is practical metaphysics. Deep metaphysics. I'm going to encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, to get into, and this is something that the ancestors really put on my heart about 3 weeks ago. I didn't understand it then. It took me 3 weeks to really extract it and get it together. But this is an analysis that was missing from Bobby Hemmitt's, who I've mainly listened to him. But this is a component that was missing from his analysis. This really is. This idea of morality, honor, and law. These are concepts that we have to embrace first. I would encourage you to look up, one second, family, let me look this up. All right, family. So I want to encourage you, and I'm back, by the way. I want to encourage you, because I had to go and get some books, to look up Immanuel Kant. That's going to be with an I. Immanuel with an I. Kant. K-A-N-T. I also want to encourage you to look up Edgar Brightman. I'm just now getting into him, particularly his book, Moral Laws. And then 3 books that you need to be studying and taking notes and breaking down. This is the first one. I like this guy, man. He just, the ancestors, if this, he's brilliant. I really like this guy. I like listening to him talk. He really is about black people, their liberation, and getting out of racism. So when we're talking about honor and morality, this is a good place to start. That's a good place to start. See if I can get that in there. There you go. So there you go. Look that up. Every black person, if you consider yourself metaphysically inclined, you should have this book. By the way, if you make it to the end of this video right here, because I'm not done yet, I got 2 more books. I want you to write down, I want you to type below titles of books that you believe teach black folks honor and teach black folks honorable principles. This is another book that I came across a few years back. This is something else. This is another really good one. I would love to have you give this to Christian friends, but I don't think they'd respond very good to it. But it's a good book. And then I searched high and low for this thing. And I was so happy when I found it, because it turned out to be better than I thought it was going to be. This is for black mothers or mothers to be. Get this book. Black mothers or mothers to be. I should do a list of black books for mothers to be or families, but I don't have a lot of family books. Anyway, check that out. Get that book, y'all. Get that book. Okay. This is a hidden gem. I want to show you the back. Okay? This is a hidden gem. It is freaking... I often say that, I like books from, I'm sorry, I'm trying to see when this was actually published. This couldn't have been published in 2004. Well, it says it was published in 2004. Anyway, I like books typically from, the 90s. Not the 90s, I'm sorry, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, because they typically told the truth. This obviously is not a book from this, but the information is that good. I thought this book was from the 70s, so surprise, surprise. Check it out. And again, you make it this far, write down below, books that you believe teach black folks honor and such. So, questions, comments, concerns, leave them below. I'm your brother Von Mears. Peace.